Well, this month took a bit of a turn. Hello and welcome back to the Trashion Icon. I am your host, G. Spencer Morton. On this episode, the G stands for Left Hand Green. Each episode, we will be exploring a new kind of trash, garbage, or wasted material and find a new and exciting way to transform it from trash into trashion. Everything I use will be either garbage or secondhand or recycled in some way. I make no guarantee each project will be a success, but I do guarantee it will be an adventure. I will prove that very true with this episode, because although it was not necessarily successful, it was an adventure. Yeah, so I started this month out with a very different project. I went into this month with a very different material, different inspiration, completely different concept. But after a few weeks of trying to make it work, it just wasn't. I needed to just take a break. As I was taking my break, I actually pulled off one of my favorite books from the shelf. I've been reading this book for about 2 years, on and off again. Don't know if I'll ever finish this book, but every time I start reading it, I immediately get a lot more creative, I get my imagination going, and I wind up putting the book down and going to do something instead. So I can return to this book time and time again, and it's always new and exciting, because I'll probably never finish it. The book is From A to Biba by Barbara Helenecki, who is the founder, creative head, icon, legend, star, hero, eternal inspiration behind the brand Biba. And if you've never heard of Biba, I suppose we can forgive you, because outside of the UK, it's not a particularly well-known brand. In the book, Barbara tells the story of the rise and fall of the tiny, energetic boutique that would grow into a vast emporium and epitomized the swinging 60s. The Biba store was to become an icon of the hip 60s and 70s London and hangout for artists, film stars, musicians, including the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, Twiggy, Bridget Bardot, and Marianne Faithfull. This autobiography invokes the adventure spirit of the 1960s and describes an extraordinary life. The book gave me such a rejuvenating kick to create, but also gave me a focus. I was cleaning out some closets in my parents' house, and I came across this abandoned Twister game. And I think anyone who's like fashion inclined or crafty or costumey has at one point in their life looked at the Twister mat and thought, can I make something out of this? Because it's basically a rectangle of material, fabric, however you want to put it. And I think that rectangle has both a lot of personality and a lot of potential. So I came across this brilliant 3-hole wrap dress pattern. Very easy to make. You can make it out of almost any material. So after I came across this pattern for the wrap dress, I remembered reading about paper dresses, not paper dolls, but paper dresses. And they were these fabulous hospital gowns that you would order and you would get them in the mail, unfolded, and it would be a real dress designed to be worn once and only once. It was amazing. It was fabulous. Like, it was so colorful and vibrant and had crazy patterns. And that was a big inspiration for this project, was remembering that. Because including looking at From A to Biba and looking at this very 60s game, I wanted to really encapsulate the fun and inspiration of how simple a lot of the 1960s clothing was. So there was, for a glorious moment, this fad of paper dresses that absolutely took over the 1960s. Paper fashions quickly became popular in the fashion world, with designers such as Ozzie Clark, Celia Birtwell, Elsa Drags creating their own versions. These paper fashions were exciting, fun, and cheap, enabling the wearer to stay up to date with the newest prints and styles. These paper dresses were easily altered by the modern woman, as they required no sewing, just a pair of scissors, glue, and sticky tape. And the really interesting thing is, like, this fad got started when paper companies were trying to find creative ways to promote They're paper cups, paper plates, they're paper, so they made this wacky fashion trend that really took off. This might very well be one of the first instances of what we think of as fast fashion. These garments were designed entirely to be worn literally once and then disposed of. With how much we've learned about recycling, could we potentially replace things like Forever 21 and a lot of fast fashion with these paper fashions? Why not get something made out of paper? Why not get something that you know you're going to dispose of, that isn't made with child labor, that doesn't cause that much pollution, and actually can be recycled into another dress? I think taking that concept of the disposable paper dress and applying that to a different but not completely dissimilar material made for a way more interesting creative challenge. So Twister was initially developed starting in 1964 with the idea of making a life-size or larger-than-life board game. So Twister actually became a huge success in 1966 when Ava Gabor played it with Jimmy Carson on The Tonight Show. So looking at the box and its included materials, there's no information about what the mat is made of. However, I do know that the material of the mat is similar to like a trash bag or a tarp, you can tell by the feel, and does respond to heat. But I remembered learning about this technique of fusing two pieces of plastic together from another icon, legend, star, hero, and eternal inspiration and underappreciated person in general. Diana Valenka is the first place winner of the Sonoma Trashion Fashion Show from 2013. So making an educated guess, I would say the mat is made of something like a polyurethane resin. A polyurethane resin is a wide category of plastic and has a very wide range of if it can be recycled or how it should be recycled, because it gets very complicated and muddy. Some of it can be recycled, but some of it can only be recycled if you take it to a specific place. Some of it can be recycled with your garbage. Some of it can be recycled but not in your recycling bin. It gets very confusing. According to the Progressive Bag Alliance, California retailers distribute more than 19 billion plastic retail carry-out bags annually, and less than 5% are currently recycled. At-store plastic bin recycling programs can help provide California consumers with a convenient network of more than 7,000 locations for bag recycling, like Lucky's or Safeway. Both of them offer plastic bag recycling. You don't have to bring just Lucky's or Safeway bags, but any of those kind of like plastic bags that you get from like takeout or grocery stores. Again, these bags can be recycled, but what they can be made into is limited. One thing I did learn about plastic bags is that while the recyclability is being developed and they can be recycled, plastic bags are actually way better for the environment because they take up way less water, they take a lot less energy to produce, a lot less human labor, and they produce a lot less waste, which I found really surprising. So although our instinct is like, oh, paper is better for the environment or a cotton tote bag is better, not really, because a cotton tote bag, you know, there's a lot of problems with cotton. It takes a lot of water, a lot of manpower. It's not very good for the environment. Although it is reusable, it's not very good. Like, it's not a real substitute. Or like paper, which again, cutting down a lot of trees, a lot of water, a lot of manpower. Both of those take up a lot more water, energy, and manpower than plastic bags, and plastic bags can be recycled. So weirdly enough, plastic is actually the more environmental choice. There's also been a plethora of plastic bag inspired Sonoma Trashion Fashion entries. All of them are stunning and beautiful, and it never ceases to be an inspiring material. So while the Twister mat isn't paper, it has a lot of the same characteristics as like the paper dresses did. So I made this without the actual pattern and more or less eyeballed the shapes. I found a picture of the actual pattern piece and I just eyeballed it using my body double, Jeff, who I made earlier this year with the help of some friends. I can't really call it a sewing project because I didn't actually sew anything. I used an iron to fuse the shoulders and patch up any holes. It took a bit of experimenting, but I think it turned out pretty well. flaws don't really bother me that much, because had I been a perfectionist, I would never have even tried to make it. It's easy to get caught up with the idea that if you're not going to make it perfect, then don't bother. But this was actually a really fun experiment to just give it a shot, give it a try, and learn a lot from it. It's a wearable dress. It's an actual garment, and the design did lend itself really well to the pattern of the material. It looks like you turned a twister board into a dress, and that's an achievement. Like, you took trash and you turned it into fashion. That's what Trashion is all about. It's about taking the risks, getting creative, not worrying about perfection, and taking risks with your materials. Like, don't worry about it. You're taking trash and turning it into something valuable. You win. Celebrating the adventure and not the outcome. I would absolutely get the pattern and recreate a second version of this and make it, with the bias tape and all that, just to see how far off did I get? What adjustments did I make right or wrong? The color and the branding. It's also utilizing the time period which it references in the design. Like, it's very 1960s playful, and I would absolutely wear this to like a Halloween costume party, or really any kind of costume party. This is actually a really good, very easy project to make if you need a last minute Halloween costume. So if you're looking to experiment with a little to absolutely no sewing project, pull out a box of Twister and give it a whirl. I feel like I fulfilled a little bit of a childhood dream by making a Twister mat into très chic fashion. I just learned a fun fact today that the medals from the Tokyo Olympics, they got the gold, silver, and bronze that plate the medals from donated cell phones. So again, tying it back to our last episode, these creative solutions are important, and we're finding new and exciting ways to recycle materials. This is what I'm talking about with creative solutions to recycling. If you're interested in learning more contemporary fashion history, like more about the 1960s fashion movements, I highly recommend The Ultimate Fashion History on Facebook and YouTube by Amanda Halley. Wonderful group, great content. Or the Fashion and series with Scott Schiavone, fashion curator. Thank you for joining us on another exciting episode of the Trashion Icon. I have been your host, G. Spencer Morton, the Trashion Icon. If you enjoyed this episode or have any thoughts, feelings, or opinions, please leave a comment or a like. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode. I've got some excellent reading to catch up on, so I'll see you next time. Bye!